Welcome back to Movies Outpost. Today, I will show you a movie titled Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. Enjoy the recap. The film kicks off with a scene of adorable baby raccoons playing in a cage. However, their fun is interrupted by the ominous figure of the High Evolutionary. He reaches for one raccoon in particular, our beloved Rocket. Fast forward to the present, and we find the Guardians of the Galaxy: Peter, Rocket, Groot, Nebula, Mantis, Drax, Kraglin and Cosmo the space dog. They are taking shelter on Nowhere, where they've established their base. Peter is struggling with Gamora's loss and hasn't resorted to the best of items. At the same time, Kraglin and Cosmo are caught in a heated rivalry as they test their telekinetic skills against each other. Kraglin is determined to master Yondu's arrow using his fin, but he's not quite there yet, as he accidentally hits Nebula in the chest. While the crew is enjoying a feed and camaraderie, Adam Warlock, a being from the depths of space, comes hurtling towards Nowhere at breakneck speed. He ends up crashing into Rocket, triggering an immediate reaction from the Guardians. Nebula takes the first shot, but she quickly learns that this is not your average adversary when he flings her around like a rag doll. Groot leaps to the defense, wrapping his vines around Adam, but the enemy isn't fazed. He takes off into the sky, dragging Groot through multiple buildings and eventually ripping his head off. Kraglin steps up to the plate, but quickly reverts back to hiding. Adam then goes after Rocket again, shooting him and snapping Mantis's arm in the process. Peter and Drax manage to force Adam outside, and Drax tries to take him on single-handedly. But Rocket is seriously injured, and Drax is severely outmatched by this golden newcomer. Just as Adam continues to pound on Drax, Nebula strikes him from behind with one of her blades. The med pack Peter tries to use on Rocket isn't working and nearly kills him, until Nebula instructs them to remove it. Suddenly, Adam regains consciousness and beats a hasty retreat, leaving Nowhere in ruins. In the wake of their chaotic battle, the Guardians move Rocket to a safer location. As they do so, Rocket slips into a flashback of his past, a chilling time when he was a mere experiment for the High Evolutionary. He was labeled as 89P13 and tossed into a cage with 3 other mechanically modified animal test subjects: an otter with robotic arms, a walrus equipped with wheel legs, and a rabbit adorned with additional mechanical parts. These unlikely companions offer Rocket some comfort, making him feel less isolated in their shared predicament. Back in the present, the Guardians discover a deadly secret. Rocket has a kill switch implanted within him that could explode if they attempt any kind of surgery. They surmise that Adam was likely dispatched to retrieve him. Digging deeper, Nebula uncovers the existence of a passkey that could override this lethal kill switch. The catch? It's held by Orgoscope, the very corporation responsible for Rocket's torment. Without wasting a moment, Peter rallies the Guardians to embark on a daring mission to Orgoscope, all in a desperate bid to save their friend. Meanwhile, at the Arret lab on Counter-Earth, we see the High Evolutionary in a meeting with Aisha and Adam. The plot thickens as we learn that they are in his employ and do anything that he commands. His interest in Rocket becomes clear. Rocket is his most prized asset. When Adam fails in his mission to retrieve him, the High Evolutionary resorts to torture as punishment. Aisha intercedes, pleading with him to halt the torment as she views Adam like a son. Unyielding, the High Evolutionary instructs his henchman, Thiel, that he knows the Guardians' next move. The Guardians make their way to the Orgoscope, the location of Orgocorp's HQ. As they gear up to penetrate the protective shield, Peter and Mantis share a heartfelt conversation about Peter's avoidance of Earth since his abduction by the Ravagers. He confides that the only person he would recognize is his grandfather, and he isn't even sure if he's still alive. Their focus returns to the mission as they successfully breach the first and second plasma security shields. But as they cross the third, their ship begins to malfunction. Their problems are compounded when their ship is surrounded by Ravagers, led by Stakar Ogord. Inside, their ship portals open, and the Ravagers enter the ship. Alongside them is the alternate Gamora, who has been secretly communicating with Nebula. Peter is left dumbstruck at the sight of Gamora, despite this version being a stranger to the rest of the Guardians, including himself. Stakar hands out spacesuits to the Guardians and tells them they must evade the Orgo sentries while digging through the company's records for information on Rocket. If they are detected, they won't last seconds. He tasks Gamora with leading the team, making it clear that he won't be able to assist them if they're caught. In another revealing flashback, we discover why Rocket was so valuable to the High Evolutionary. His exceptional intelligence. Rocket was not just a witness, but also an unwilling participant in the creation of Counter-Earth, the destination for the High Evolutionary's completed experiments. He exposed Rocket to a machine designed to accelerate the evolution of certain animals, but the process was far from perfect, resulting in mindless monstrosities rather than advanced creatures. It's here that we learn of the origin of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and their lost fifth brother. These creatures were deemed failures and discarded once their transformations were complete. But Rocket proves his worth in a way that leaves everyone stunned. He quickly identifies a flaw in the process involving the proteins in the organisms they were using. The room falls silent as they process how Rocket managed to spot and solve the problem in a matter of seconds. Now, on a more serious note, the Teletubbies. My mistake, the Power Rangers take off descending onto the Orgoscope. After taking some notes from Neil Armstrong, they finally activate their gravity boots. Peter attempts a heart-to-heart with Gamora, only to be shut down. This Gamora isn't the person he once knew. The rest of the team shares a laugh at Peter's expense, while Nebula, ever focused, finishes her work and produces a burger loaded with extra cheese. Inside, the alarm is raised about a breach in the wall. The team quickly hide their spacesuits before they're discovered by Orgo sentries, led by Master Karja. Thinking on their feet, the Guardians pretend to be employees. They lighten the mood with a few jokes, and amazingly, the sentries accept their cover story and move along. Peter, Gamora, and Nebula split off from the group while Drax and Mantis pair up. The trio encounter an Orgo employee named Ura and pressure her into guiding them to the records. Just as they locate Rocket's file, the Orgo sentries are hot on their trail. They're quickly surrounded, and Gamora resorts to holding Ura hostage, even as they face off against the lethal villain, Carrot Face. Meanwhile, Drax and Mantis are already deeply embroiled in combat, with Drax seemingly enjoying every moment. As the rest of the Guardians join the fray, the tide of the battle takes a turn when Karja opens fire, striking Drax twice and Nebula once, leaving them weakened. Peter convinces Ura to assist them, gaining access to the Orgo systems. Cleverly, he tricks her and deactivates the artificial gravity, throwing the Orgo sentries into chaos. This gives the Guardians the opportunity they need to make their escape, returning to their ship and blasting off from the Orgoscope. In yet another trip down memory lane, we see Rocket with his fellow animal companions sharing dreams of freedom. It's a touching moment where they choose their own names. The otter introduces herself as Lilla, the walrus opts for Teefs, and the rabbit chooses the name Floor. Inspired by a rocket soaring high above Counter-Earth, our hero names himself Rocket. The Guardians dig into his file, unearthing the dark, horrifying experiences he endured at the hands of the High Evolutionary. However, the passkey they desperately need is missing. It's been deleted, and likely resides within the memory of a device implanted in Thiel's head. As Peter gears up to track him down, Gamora opposes the plan. The impasse is broken when Nebula reminds her that Rocket is still part of their family. Over with the Orgo sentries, Aisha and Adam are dealing with a captive Ravager and his pet, Blurp. As Aisha attempts to coerce Adam into extracting information from the Ravager about the Guardians' whereabouts, he instead incinerates the captive with his powers, which results in a scolding. During this, Aisha intercepts a radio transmission from Gamora to the Ravager, relaying coordinates for pickup. Inadvertently, she's tipped off their enemies about their next destination. Meanwhile, Adam seems to develop an unexpected fondness for Blurp. In another blast from the past, we witness a frenzied High Evolutionary dragging Rocket to observe his latest experiments. Taking Rocket's insightful suggestions regarding the proteins in the animals to heart, he's perfected his process, creating more advanced creatures. However, in a dark turn, the High Evolutionary belittles Rocket, treating him like a failed experiment filled with errors, unfit for the new world he's creating. He orders his minions to prepare Rocket for surgery and chillingly commands them to incinerate the remaining members of Rocket's crew. The Guardians touch down on Counter-Earth, a world filled with suburban neighborhoods reminiscent of those Peter used to know, now inhabited by humanoid animal creatures. Drax unfortunately makes a poor first impression by throwing a ball at a child's head, triggering the inhabitants to pelt the Guardians with garbage. Groot quickly diffuses the situation by growing to an intimidating size, effectively scaring them away. After Peter assists a Batwoman, she offers them shelter in her home. There, they provide the Guardians with information about the location of High Evolutionary Station in Thiel. Grateful, the family offers Peter their car for his journey with Nebula and Groot. Upon arrival, they're greeted by two robotic animal mutations that escort Peter and Groot inside. We're then taken back in time once more for one last flashback. Rocket, in a daring act of rebellion, had stolen a device allowing him to unlock the cells and orchestrate an escape. As he and Lilla shared an embrace, High Evolutionary shot Lilla as punishment for their attempted escape. Overcome with grief and rage, Rocket viciously attacked High Evolutionary, leaving him disfigured. When two henchmen arrived, Rocket managed to kill them, but not before they fatally shot Teefs and Floor. Rocket made his escape alone, mourning the loss of his friends, his eyes filled with a thirst for revenge. Back on Counter-Earth, High Evolutionary's minion Warpig takes flight, aiming to attack Gamora and capture Rocket. However, Atom intercepts Warpig as she tries to seize Rocket, stopping her in her tracks. Peter confronts High Evolutionary about his cruel actions. In response, High Evolutionary reveals his plan to obliterate the planet and start anew. As the destruction of Counter-Earth commences, its inhabitants face imminent doom. Atom rushes back to Aisha, only to witness her ship explode. Amidst this chaos, Peter and Groot fend off some of High Evolutionary's henchmen. Groot, brandishing about 7 guns at once, mows down all in his path. They make a daring leap out of the window with Thiel, with Groot morphing his form to create wings to stay aloft while he drowns Thiel and extracts his memory. As the planet implodes around them, the rest of the Guardians scramble back to their ship. Mantis, Drax, and Nebula find themselves on High Evolutionary's ship. Peter, Gamora, and Groot are in a desperate scramble to use the passkey and save Rocket. Rocket, meanwhile, finds himself in a stark white realm, greeted by Lilla, Teefs, and Floor. It's as if they're ushering him into the afterlife. Peter is in a frantic rush to revive his friend, but Gamora mournfully insists it's too late. Rocket seems ready to join his departed friends, but Lilla intervenes, telling him that he still has a purpose left to fulfill in life. After a heartfelt farewell, Rocket comes back to life, much to the relief and joy of his friends. Their celebration is short-lived, as they receive a transmission from Nebula. Nebula, along with Drax and Mantis, have stumbled upon a large group of children captured by High Evolutionary for his twisted experiments. They hear Rocket's voice over the radio, filling them with joy knowing he's alive. But their relief turns to dread as High Evolutionary captures them, broadcasting their predicament to the other Guardians. Peter rallies his friends, vowing to rescue their captured comrades. He decides to give Kraglin a call for his assistance. In the midst of the chaos, Drax demonstrates a surprising skill. He can speak the children's native language. His goofy antics, reminiscent of the times he spent with his own daughter, manage to calm the frightened kids. Back in space, Kraglin, accompanied by a few brave souls, pilots Nowhere straight into the heat of the battle, raining firepower onto High Evolutionary's ship. Feeling the tide of the battle shift, High Evolutionary plays his trump card, the Hellspores. These horrifically mutated creatures, numbering in the thousands, swarm into the battlefield, wreaking havoc on both ships and infiltrating Nowhere. High Evolutionary adds more fuel to the fire by releasing 3 monstrous obelisks into the cell where Drax, Mantis, and Nebula are inside. These are by far the most terrifying creatures they've faced. Meanwhile, Nowhere City crumbles under the relentless assault of the Hellspores as they destroy building to building. Rocket manages to clear his ship of the vile creatures, while Peter steers his ship on a collision course with High Evolutionary's vessel. Rocket and Groot follow closely behind. The 3 Guardians trapped in the pit are desperate, but Mantis steps up to the plate and befriends the 3 creatures. On Nowhere, Kraglin watches helplessly as his comrades fall to the ruthless Hellspores. In the depths of despair, he experiences a vision of Yondu, his late mentor, who urges him to use his heart to guide the Yaka arrow. Emboldened by Yondu's spirit, Kraglin finds the strength to wield the arrow with newfound mastery, decimating the Hellspores with each precise strike, making them drop like flies. Meanwhile, Cosmo, the space dog with telekinetic powers, steps up to protect their last stronghold, effortlessly crushing an incoming demon with her mind. Onboard High Evolutionary's ship, a mutiny unfolds as his crew, faced with the relentless attack from the Guardians, turn their guns on their leader, demanding a retreat. But High Evolutionary is far from defeated. With a surge of his immense power, he vaporizes the entire deck of his ship, taking out his mutinous crew in one fell swoop. As chaos engulfs High Evolutionary's ship, the Guardians stand united, ready to risk everything to save the captive children from a horrifying fate. Amid the chaos, they launch a ferocious counterattack against High Evolutionary's army. In an epic battle, they cut through the mutated creatures with a brutal combination of strength, skill, and relentless determination. With the ship disintegrating around them, the Guardians work fast, freeing the terrified children and leading them towards a gaping hole in the ship's hull. Nebula, with her expert piloting skills, maneuvers their ship as close as possible to the dying vessel, while Cosmo uses her telekinetic powers to draw it even closer to Nowhere. Caught in the chaos, Atom finds himself saved from certain death by Groot, leaving him grateful for the unexpected second chance. As the last of the captives scramble aboard the waiting ship, Rocket is nowhere to be found. Rocket, driven by his own traumatic past, stumbles upon a room filled with caged animals, including a litter of baby raccoons. Overwhelmed by emotion, he vows to save them from the pain he once endured. As he sets about freeing them in complete tears, the High Evolutionary finds him and mercilessly tosses him around, belittling him as nothing more than a failed experiment and a test subject. Fueled by a surge of defiance, Rocket fights back, shooting High Evolutionary in the chest. The rest of the Guardians arrive just in time to join the fight, delivering a punishing onslaught to High Evolutionary. Gamora rips away his face mask, revealing the hideous disfigurement inflicted by Rocket. Rocket chooses not to kill High Evolutionary, instead leaving him to perish as his ship crumbles and explodes around him. In the climax of this epic journey, Rocket frees the other animals while the rest of the Guardians and the children make it safely across. Tragically, Cosmo's powers give out before Peter can make it on board. He runs and jumps but misses. This leaves him stranded in the freezing void of space. Just as all hope seems lost, Adam swoops in to save him, bringing him to safety. The team reunites, hugging one another in relief and joy, with Adam joining their tight-knit circle. However, Gamora distances herself, choosing to return with the Ravagers. As the team starts to disband, Peter bids a heartfelt farewell to Gamora, who leaves to rejoin the Ravagers. Peter shares his plan to return to Earth, while Mantis decides to embark on a solo journey of self-discovery. Despite Drax's offer to accompany her, Mantis insists on going alone. Meanwhile, Nebula suggests that Drax should take care of the children, a role he was always meant to have, and declares that she will assume control of Nowhere. Passing on his leadership, Peter nominates Rocket to lead the next Guardians team. In a touching moment, Groot says, "I love you guys."
I love you guys.
As Gamora reunites with her Ravager family, Peter finally returns to Earth, reuniting with his grandfather Jason in an emotional scene. In a mid-credits scene, Rocket and Groot lead their new team, comprised of Kraglin, Cosmo, Adam, Blurp, and an orphan named Phyla. As they face an oncoming horde of enemies, Rocket bravely leads them into battle. Thank you for following along with this recap. Your likes and subscribes mean a lot, and I look forward to seeing you in the next one.